Hey, what's up guys? Captain Zac here. Well, I've got a big plate of halibut in front of me, some fresh halibut fillets just caught yesterday. So we just caught these chicken halis right here near Juneau. And I'm really excited to share a couple of my favorite halibut recipes. So I get the question a lot, like what's your favorite way to cook halibut or what different seasonings work well? And I am absolutely psyched to share that I've just launched my own line of halibut seasoning. So I call it Halibut Magic. And this thing is absolutely tremendous. It's a rich, sort of buttery, nutty flavor. It's got some dill-forward notes, and it also has a little bit of a citrus finish. It's just a really versatile halibut seasoning, and it works just super well with a bunch of different recipes. I will share 2 recipes with you today that I think are absolutely phenomenal. So the first recipe is a simple pan-seared halibut. I call it pan-seared halibut magic. And the next one is going to be my famous halibut salad. So this is the halibut salad that goes in a halibut salad sandwich that almost always triggers a king salmon bite when I'm trolling. So I like these recipes for 3 reasons. One, they're quick. So every hour I'm in the kitchen is an hour I'm not out there on the water. So I like a nice quick recipe. The second one is it's easy. So these are easy recipes. They're not 25 and 30 steps with 40 ingredients. I'm not trying to out-chef you here. So it's a nice, simple preparation. And then finally, they're tasty. They're just darn right good. So they're a quick go-to recipe that's going to deliver for you every time. Okay, so let's get started with the pan-seared halibut magic. So I mentioned I love keeping it simple. Well, that's exactly what you've got here. Plate of halibut, that's the first ingredient. Butter, that's the second ingredient. And of course, the halibut magic. 3 ingredients, and this is going to deliver an awesome result. So what we'll want to do is take some of this halibut and cut it into sort of 1-inch cubes. It doesn't have to be precise, and it'll also vary depending on the thickness of the fish. So sometimes what I'll do is actually I'll take the more uniform pieces that have a uniform thickness. I'll make those into some pan-seared halibut magic, and then I'll take some of the odds and ends and make halibut salad out of them. But basically we're just looking for some cubes, just some nice uniform pieces. So I'm just starting to cut a few of them here. It's okay if they're not perfect squares, they can be rectangles. But you kind of get the point. See all these nice little cubes coming? And what I'll do is I'll grab another piece over here that has a similar thickness. I'll take a few chunks out of there. Just cubing it up. And there we've got some cubes to work with. So that's the first step. We need to cut that halibut into some uniform cubes. Okay, so now that we have our cubes, what we'll want to do is just apply kind of a light dusting of this halibut magic on top of the fish. So nothing too heavy, just a light dusting. And then what we'll do is we'll flip it over. You'll see that it sticks quite nicely to the fish. So we flip it over and give it a similar dusting. Once we do that, what I like to do is then sort of mix all the fish together such that all of the extra angles, all the other pieces of the fish that didn't get dusted, they get some coating on them. Okay, now we're over here at the stove, and I've got a large frying pan heating up over some medium-high heat, and I've got a half stick of butter here, which I'm going to toss in. So you'll see I like to keep it real simple. It's just a half stick of butter. It's a dusting of the halibut magic over top of those halibut chunks, and also it's just an appropriate amount of halibut chunks to fill up the pan. I like to get myself a little spatula, like a turner here, which is nice for moving the butter around, but also to turn the fish. Okay, now the butter is fully melted. It's good and hot. You can see it's starting to bubble, starting to brown just a little bit. Time for the fish. So we'll just place these fish cubes in. Sort of spread them out in the pan here. And there we go. So now we've got the fish in the pan. We'll cook it for just a couple of minutes or so on this side, and then we'll do a quick turn. The worst thing in the world you can do is overcook halibut. So we're not looking to go crazy here. We're just looking for kind of a quick sear and then a flip. And I like to give them a flip when they're a little less than halfway cooked. So you can start to see the white on the bottom, where it'll be pink on top, white on the bottom. That means it's starting to cook up through. A little less than halfway is when I'll give them a flip here, because the pan and the butter will be really hot by the time I flip it over. And it'll cook a little quicker after I flip it. So I'll go ahead and give them an initial flip. One thing I like to do after I flip it, I get the Halibut Magic back out, and I'll actually pour some Halibut Magic on the edge, just on the rim of the pan, and then work it around that butter. So it really infuses that butter with that additional seasoning. I wait until after the first flip so that the seasoning itself doesn't burn. Now you can kind of reach in and check and see how it's cooking there. We are almost done. For some of these larger pieces, sometimes I'll flip them onto a side that they haven't been on before, just to kind of even it out a bit. Starting to get a sort of a nice brown color and some good texture there as well. I'll pick the pan up and kind of spin it around. Make sure that butter is sort of infusing each piece. And that butter is going to come back to play a big role in a second. Okay. Now you can see these are good to go. We've got a nice brown on them, some good texture, and these are definitely cooked through. So I am going to go ahead and plate them. Oh, and we can't forget the big finish. So you've got a lot of really rich seasoning here, a lot of that extra butter that's infused with that Halibut Magic. So what we'll do is we'll take a few tablespoons of that and then give it a nice drizzle over top of our final product. And that is going to give it just a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of extra moisture, and of course that rich salted butter is always a wonderful pairing with halibut. And there you have it. Pan-seared Halibut Magic. Okay, back to the stove again here, and we're ready to make the second recipe, the halibut salad. And you'll see this is just as easy and simple as the first recipe, that pan-seared halibut. So all we'll need for this halibut salad is some halibut. This is just the rest of the plate full of halibut that I had there. Halibut Magic, of course, some olive oil, and then some mayonnaise as well. So we've got this saucepan heating over a medium-high heat. What I'll do is I'll add some olive oil to that The goal here is just to get some flaked halibut. So it doesn't have to be too precise about the exact amount of oil or exact cooking times, other than the goal is just to not overcook the fish. All we're gonna do is put that fish in, flake it up, and then that'll be an input to the halibut salad. Okay, the oil's nice and hot. You can see how thin and loose it is. Time to add the halibut fillets. You can hear it simmer a bit. Again, this is a great way to use sort of odds and ends. So remember, I had these little thinner pieces that weren't used in the pan-seared halibut. It's a great way to leverage those smaller pieces. Also tails, halibut tails. So sometimes on a fillet you'll get like this little tail piece and then this marquee chunk. So you can keep those tails and then use those for halibut salad, which is just a great use of what is still some really amazing fish. Okay, after about a minute or two, I like to start kind of working this fish around. You'll see it's starting to cook, starting to flake up. I like to keep that fish moving because I'm not necessarily looking for a sear on this. I'm just looking to cook it. And pretty soon it'll start to really easily flake. Okay. When it gets to about this point, I'll actually start physically flaking the fish. So really just pushing down across those fillets. What happens is the fillets will start to break apart. That helps ensure an even doneness across this flaked fish. You wouldn't want some of it to be totally flaked and some of it to be huge chunks. So just sort of consistently continuing to work the fish like this helps ensure that it's evenly cooked. And we are certainly getting there. You'll see every time you stir it, more and more flakes will sort of peel off. There's still a couple of thicker chunks there, but all that will do is take a little bit more cooking and then those will flake apart as well. So this batch is coming along quite nicely. You can see it's really starting to flake up. I can see there's a few pieces that still have a little bit of pink to them. So all that means is just a couple more minutes. Just continue to stir and kind of work that fish around. But again, we always want to be careful not to overcook halibut. So again, we're not looking for like any kind of a hardcore sear here. We're just looking for doneness, just looking for it to turn white. Okay, perfect. And I would say we are there. So that is nice and white, perfectly flaked halibut. That is a great input for halibut salad. Okay, I've got my flaked halibut here, as well as a large Tupperware container and a 1 cup measuring cup. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 3 cups of this flaked fish in the container. And you'll see there's some liquid here. We don't want liquid in the halibut salad. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that we let the liquid go to one side, and then we'll use this scoop to kind of scoop in the opposite direction so that we get 1 cup of fish that's not filled with liquid. Just like so. Okay, we'll do that 2 more times. So that was 1 cup. There's the 2nd cup. And cup number 3. So we'll set the pan of flaked halibut aside, and we're actually gonna let this cool. So the fish that's in the container, we're gonna let that cool for about 20 minutes or so, just so it stops steaming. Because the next thing we're gonna do is add the seasoning and the mayonnaise, and we don't wanna add mayonnaise to scalding hot fish. So now we'll just give that a bit to cool off. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes and now the flaked halibut is no longer hot. So now the magic begins. We got the halibut magic. What we're gonna do is put 1 tablespoon. So I've got a 1 tablespoon measuring spoon here, a whole tablespoon of the halibut magic right in with this flaked halibut. So we'll give it a nice dusting here. So we'll basically kind of spread it out all across the top. And then the next thing we'll do is go ahead and add a half cup of mayonnaise. So I like to use regular mayonnaise for the utmost flavor and moisture, but if you're counting calories, you can also use like non-fat yogurt, just some plain Greek yogurt or something like that. We'll still give it a nice consistency. But now you just mix it up. So the goal is to just evenly mix everything in there, which again is 3 cups of flaked halibut, 1 tablespoon of the Halibut Magic, and then a half cup of mayonnaise. You'll see it'll start to get almost like a yellowish tint to it. So there's some rich buttery notes in there. We'll keep stirring it. Okay. And now it is sort of evenly mixed around. And at this point, I recommend putting it in the fridge. So I like to actually refrigerate this overnight, give it a nice chill. The seasoning gets down in there and it'll really get a nice texture to it. Now, if push really comes to shove, you could toss it in the freezer, or you could just refrigerate it for like an hour or 2. You could eat it fresh right now. That's still gonna be really tasty, I promise you. But if you're looking for the optimal experience, I would toss it in the fridge overnight and then wake up in the morning and you're gonna have some delicious halibut salad. Okay, so here we are. It's already been about 24 hours, so this has been in overnight. And you can see this halibut salad has set up just beautifully. Look at this rich, buttery color. So you get that deep yellow color, and the flavor has just infused all throughout the fish. And it really sets up for just an awesome texture. Check it out. Just a wonderful batch of halibut salad here. And I'm telling you, this is such a versatile input to a bunch of different really delicious meals. So, you know, you could eat this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For breakfast, I love putting this on an English muffin. I'll toast that up and maybe put some sharp cheddar on it and melt it down. That is really, really a delicious breakfast. For lunch, this goes great in a sandwich or a wrap. So you'll see me out on the water a lot, just eating a halibut salad sandwich. I do think that triggers salmon strikes as you're trolling for king, so just a pro tip there. And then for dinner, you know what, serving this over sort of a bed of greens is just a really wonderful way to have this delicious halibut salad play perfectly with a broader set of greens. So no matter breakfast, lunch, and dinner, any time of the day is a good time of the day to have some Halibut Magic. Well, I hope you enjoyed these 2 recipes. You know, whether you just have a couple of pounds of halibut fillets or whether you have, you know, multiple freezers full with hundreds of pounds of halibut, it's always good to have more recipes. It's more preparations, more ways to deliver some really tasty bites to friends and family. So, you know, if you're looking to give it a shot, feel free to head over to my website. This Halibut Magic is available over there. And as every day or week goes by, there's more and more stores that'll have this as well throughout Alaska and the Pacific Northwest. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Tight lines for now.